Well, the saga of Biden-era censorship and dystopian Big Brotherism continues even after that administration is over, or the not censorship, if you believe the constant insistence otherwise. Oh no, we weren't censoring, we were just babysitting your opinions and suggesting that other people put you in a timeout, as though that's the role of the federal government anyhow. No, we weren't telling Facebook to censor your COVID opinions, even though we said that we were.
We're flagging problematic posts for Facebook that spread disinformation.
And to do it faster.
It's important to take faster action against harmful posts. Facebook needs to move more quickly to remove harmful, violative posts.
And even though Zuck confirmed it and apologized for his part in it, we were just suggesting the promotion of better information on virus origin and virus danger and vaccine efficacy, almost all of which turned out to be actual disinformation. And no, we didn't prosecute an American for memes. We were stopping the violation of your constitutional right to vote. Okay, well, whose right to vote was infringed by the memes? Did you have those people testify? Well, no, because they don't exist. Nobody was duped out of voting by social media posts, actually. But that's only because they're protecting you from that by trying to imprison your neighbor. And no, the Disinformation Governance Board wasn't designed to censor you. That was just to provide you with better information through butchered song. Never forget, the real victim of that episode is this poor lady who was set to take your money to try to shut you up. She's since moved on to scrutinizing where other people get their money, but can you see where she gets hers? No, that's the only piece of information not worth monitoring, actually. That's the only place where the sunlight for which this organization is named does not shine. But the explanation for the Disinformation Governance Board was no, you've got it all wrong. We're not going to be monitoring Americans. We're going to be monitoring foreign disinformation campaigns and countering them. Well, if it wasn't about monitoring Americans for disinformation, then why was the Biden administration monitoring Americans for disinformation? At Wednesday's cabinet meeting, the Secretary of State and now National Security Advisor Marco Rubio revealed that the prior State Department maintained dossiers or case files on American citizens they were watching for their internet opinions. That's right, they're not just for wild Trump and Moscow pea shower stories anymore. Depending on how good at tweeting you were, there might be a Hillary file on you, too.
The Department of State of the United States had set up an office to monitor the social media posts and commentary of American citizens to identify them as vectors of disinformation. We had an office in the Department of State whose job it was to censor Americans. And by the way, I'm not going to say who it is. I'll leave it up to them. There's at least one person at this table today who had a dossier in that building of social media posts to identify them as purveyors of disinformation.
And keep an eye on your inbox, because Rubio says these dossiers will be given to those targeted, and they can decide whether to release them publicly or not.
We have these dossiers. We are going to be turning those over to these individuals. We are going to turn over these dossiers to the individuals, and they'll decide whether they want to disclose it or not.
So how did this happen? Well, through the exact path that everyone knew the Disinformation Governance Board would take. The supposed targeting of foreign terrorist operatives is just a pretext to target Americans. Oh, you talked to a foreign person once, or even you said something that a foreign person also said once? Well, that makes you a disinformation subject to the censorship jurisdiction. What Rubio is talking about was formerly known as the Global Engagement Center, established in 2011 as the Center for Strategic Counter-Terrorism Communications, for the purpose of monitoring the messages of al-qaeda and other terrorist organizations, and to develop counter messages. Under Obama in 2016, the office was rebranded as the Global Engagement Center, or maybe the Barack Obama Center for Bureaucrats who can't read the Constitution good. But the change notably removed the counterterrorism purpose from the title, and the mission became expanded to cover any and all foreign state and non-state propaganda and disinformation efforts. The change happened under the leadership of Richard Stengel, an Obama official seeking to counter Russian disinformation, in addition to that from radical Islam. And wow, his political opposition just happened to be Both of those things. In his 2019 book, Stengel said that Donald Trump employs the same disinformation techniques that the Russians do. In fact, he stole the term fake news from them. And he uses much the same scare tactics as ISIS. Well, I guess I missed the videos of Trump sawing people's heads off, but likewise, the organization continued shutting you up about COVID by tying you to the Kremlin. Oh, you think COVID was engineered? You think it has something to do with that virus lab that it absolutely came from? Well, you're part of the Russian disinformation apparatus, and now you're on the list. And they're making your dossier. And if you do get your files, be sure to check for the date of your tragic upcoming suicide, because they might still be working on it. The Global Engagement Center sent these dossier documents to social media companies for review, but per Zuck's letter last year and just common sense, everyone knows what it means when the federal government asks you to review something they don't like. There's at least an implied threat of punishment if you do nothing. The Global Engagement Center was rebranded once more at the end of the Biden term, presumably to try to escape scrutiny or avoid elimination. It became the Counter-Foreign Information Manipulation and Interference Office, but it lost its funding from Congress, and Rubio has now closed it entirely. But the scandal here isn't just laundering the surveillance of Americans for no crime other than their opinions through the premise of countering foreign propaganda and terrorism. Of course, such an operation is costly, so the scandal is also laundering your money to do it too.
American taxpayers, through the State Department, were paying groups to attack Americans and to try to silence the voice of Americans. And there were consequences. These weren't just a label they put on people. Some of these people got deplatformed, they got taken down, they couldn't communicate.
See, no matter how you explain it, the problem is the government going directly to social media platforms to push for content removal looks and sounds a lot like government censorship. Because it is. So this operation had some methods of disguise. The Global Engagement Center awarded grants to private organizations who then created lists of disinformers themselves, people who are not to be trusted, news outlets that are not to be trusted, and they gave these lists to advertisers to scare them out of putting their ads on that material. And notice the key descriptor for these trustworthy, independent, nonpartisan watchdogs. They are organizations, quote, around the world. So yes, the people warning us about the dangers of foreign meddling, we're taking our money and giving it to foreigners to meddle with our constitutional rights in our country, which should be shocking, but became routine and remains under-scrutinized in the press, the people who should most care about this sort of thing, because it's beyond principle for them. Their jobs, their livelihoods depend on challenging power freely, or at least they used to. But these days, I guess they just apply for government grants too and play nice to get them. And so, despite the evidence and despite yet another step in the sequence of government censorship in disguise, there is still resistance and hesitation to call it what it is. In coverage from the National News Desk, there's a legal and political analyst quoted saying, well, come on, we need much more information before we can credibly call this government overreach. After all, there's no rule against a government official going on people's Facebook pages and seeing what they're saying. Oh, is that all it was? It was just momentary lunch break browsing. A distraction from that government worker's actual job. No, that was his actual job. And he wasn't just looking, he was compiling the information to use it to apply pressure to shut his targets up. We get way too caught up with these technical actually arguments about the First Amendment, worried only with the specific rules of how it applies and not why it applies. For what reason do we have the First Amendment? Why did the constitutional framers write it and ratify it? It exists in recognition of the direction that the truth properly and morally flows. The truth is not given to us by our political leaders. We aren't allowed to see it at their permission. The truth exists independent of us and independent of them. It is discovered. And the only way it's discovered is when people are free to search for it. The people find the truth and they consent to a government on its basis. The government does not impose the truth regardless of their will. When we don't understand why things are organized the way that they are, we're more susceptible to this easy reorganization, but I guess that's the point. how else do you propagandize people in the name of anti-propaganda? You have to confuse a lot of fundamental principles to the point that spades aren't spades anymore. They're actually narrow, square-nosed shovels that might be used for digging, but who knows? We can't really be sure just because we saw one in a garden with a hole right next to it. Those could be completely unrelated things. Well, yeah, I guess it could be used as a murder weapon too, but the problem is, without critical thinking or philosophical curiosity or the freedom to investigate, we are hopeless to solve that case. Because when you control the truth itself, getting away with murder is actually the easy part. Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel. Always appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below, and especially over on X. That is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to coming out and chatting my live streams as live on Wednesday and Sunday nights. Looking forward to it. Cool. Hey, if you made it all the way to the end of the video, that means you probably found some value in the video. If you found some value in the video, please consider supporting my material. You can do that one time or recurring for as little as $1 a month. It not only helps me sustain, but it helps me pay the people who make my videos possible. Linked in the description for you, mattchristiansenmedia.com/support. Thanks for listening.